In Argentina, Milei's administration faces a key challenge as the lower house of Congress begins to debate its mega bill. In Palestine, the genocidal Israeli operation against Gaza entered its 117 days. Health authorities registered more than 27,000 dead to date. And in France, protesting farmers blocked highways to Paris again on Wednesday despite the government's promise to help. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Wednesday in Argentina, Milei's administration faces a key challenge as the lower house of Congress begins to debate its mega bill. The project, one of the legal pillars for Milei's political and economic plan, is also known as the Omnibus bill, in reference to the amount of articles it entails, as it aims to reform key aspects of political life, economic regulations, and social rights. The ruling party has already reduced the bill from 664 articles to 386. Still, the debate is expected to last 35 hours with possible intermissions. Analysts predict a tough session because even though the ruling party might achieve a general approval with the support of sectors of the opposition, lawmakers will then have to vote on every article in particular, and many points are still resisted even within the friendliest opposition. On Tuesday, the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, expressed his support to the call made by the National Assembly for a broad and inclusive dialogue in order to establish the electoral schedule for 2024. In this sense, the Venezuelan leader also rejected the threats of the United States and the recent sanctions imposed against Venezuela. For his part, Maduro reaffirmed his support to the Barbados Agreement for the correct holding of the presidential elections of 2024 in accordance with the provisions of the country's constitution. On the other hand, the president of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, summoned several sectors to prepare a proposal for the electoral schedule to be submitted promptly to the Venezuelan electoral power. In this sense, the president of the National Assembly of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, called on all political parties and social sectors of the country to prepare the electoral calendar for the next presidential elections.
Our response must be to summon everyone. The presidential pre-candidates that want, the political parties that want, the voters' movement that want, the businessmen, the farmers, the cultural workers, the writers, the musicians, the plastic artists, the university professors, the school teachers, everyone for the next Monday, and together, let's elaborate the electoral calendar. Let us convoke the presidential election. Let us take to the National Electoral Council the proposal of all the people of Venezuela.
In Venezuela, the Minister of Petroleum, Rafael TeleSUR, ratified that the state oil company is prepared to face the coercive measures imposed by the United States without forgetting that the commitment of the executive and the country is peace, dialogue, and good relations. The head of the Minister of Petroleum, Rafael TeleSUR, assured that today PDVSA is a powerful company. In this way, he responded to the recent threats made by several spokesmen of the administration of Joe Biden. The minister also stated that Venezuela is prepared for any scenario, including the reimposition of UN sanctions on its oil and gas exports. Washington offers guarantees only if the illegal candidacy of the militant of the 20 Venezuela party, Maria Corina Machado, enters the electoral contest, ignoring the current legal framework of the Venezuelan nation.
Venezuela is prepared for any circumstance. We, as Venezuelans, are today more united. President Nicolás Maduro Moros has requested and has expressed that we are a country of harmony, a country of union, and we, united, unified, will go forward. If they place more sanctions on us, we will prepare ourselves for the sanctions. The measures taken by the United States, the consequences will surely be taken by the United States as well.
Also in Venezuela, the authorities received in Caracas the Minister of Energy and Resources of Turkey, Alparslan Bayraktar. The visit will serve to strengthen bilateral cooperation and broaden alliances. The visit of the Turkish minister and his meeting with representatives of the Venezuelan government takes place in the context of an intensification of U.S. hostilities towards Venezuela. Venezuelan Vice President TeleSUR Rodriguez received the Turkish minister at the Ministry of Economy and Finance in Caracas to discuss opportunities for expanding energy cooperation. For his part, the Venezuelan Minister of Petroleum and President of state-owned PDVSA, Rafael Tellechea, also spoke with his Turkish counterpart about the details of the agreements in force and opportunities for new investments. The Colombian Prosecutor's Office has been forced to publish the historic sentence on the genocide committed by the state against the Patriotic Union Party 1 year after the ruling issued by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. This Tuesday, 1 year after the decision that declared the Colombian state responsible for the extermination of the political grouping, the judicial body made public the most important file on the case. Some national media pointed out that the prosecutor's office had refused to publish the document, arguing that certain expressions affected the criminal investigation. The sentence emphasizes that the extermination of the Patriotic Union was the result of systematic and generalized acts. On Tuesday, 4 days before the presidential elections in El Salvador, the Supreme Electoral Tribunal announced the change of some polling centers. In this sense, the Salvadoran Electoral Authority acknowledged that the changes are due to logistical difficulties in the nation's capital, and they recognize that a significant number of voters will be affected by the relocation. In turn, some local leaders questioned the decision as precipitated and uncoordinated. In Sunday's presidential elections, the current president, Nayib Bukele, and 5 other candidates will compete, and in order to win in the first round, one of the presidential candidates must obtain 50% of the votes in his favor and one more vote. Bukele could become the first president in El Salvador's recent history to be re-elected for a second term, due to the last time a president sought re-election was in 1944. The Haitian judiciary has ordered the arrest of Martine Moïse, the widow of President Jovenel Moïse, who is linked to his assassination in 2021. The judge, Walter Wesser Voltaire, ordered her appearance to testify as part of the investigation for the assassination. The acts for which the case against the former First Lady is being opened are related to crimes of attempted murder, association to commit a crime, armed robbery, among others. The order was made public after Judge Voltaire ended his term. Martine Moïse could still be based in the United States, although her current residence is not certain. On the day the president was assassinated, she was accompanying him and was wounded in the assault. Meanwhile, violence continues to plague Haiti. According to a UN report released on Tuesday, homicide rates in the country more than double as parliamentary groups attempt to expand the territorial control across the Caribbean nation. According to the report of the Secretary General of the UN Security Council and the UN Integrated Office in Haiti, the number of reported homicides increased by 119.4% since 2022. According to the document, in 2023 there were 4,789 homicide victims, including 465 women, 93 boys, and 48 girls, compared to 2,183 victims reported in 2022. On the other hand, the UN data shows that in 2023 alone, 8,081 people were victims of paramilitary groups' violence in Haiti, including death, injuries, or kidnappings. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from South. On Wednesday, the genocidal operation carried out by Israel against the population in Gaza reached 117 days. In this regard, health authorities confirmed that the total death toll exceeded 27,000, with more than 70% of them women and children. In the meantime, local authorities reported that the Israeli occupation army in the last hours bombarded the city of Han Yunis, Al-Daraj, and Jabalia. In this way, the Ministry of Health assures that drones continue to target family residences full of civilians and refugee camps full of wounded and survivors. It should be noted that the official death toll does not include the bodies that remain under the rubble. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged 35 donor countries to restore and maintain funding to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees known as UNRWA. In an emergency meeting convened behind closed doors, Guterres described the Israeli accusations against 12 employees of the agency as horrible and announced the launching of an investigation. In this sense, the UN reiterated that no other organization has the infrastructure to carry out this humanitarian task in Gaza. On the other hand, Riyad Mansour, the Palestinian ambassador to the UN, added that they call on all countries to strengthen support for Gaza and recalled that 153 members of UNRWA had been killed during the conflict in Gaza. Israel confirmed on Wednesday that it has begun to flood tunnels in Gaza, despite confirming that it is certain that the Israeli hostages captured on October 7th are in these subway constructions. Months ago, the possibility was thought to be nothing more than a rumor. Later, the Army Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, described the possibility as a good idea. Since Wednesday, the Army itself confirmed that it had been carrying out the project for weeks with machines and tools developed by them with the support of the Defense Ministry. The families of the 136 hostages have raised the alarm as the Army itself has confirmed to them that Hamas is keeping them hidden in tunnels. In Romania, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan on Wednesday called for a ceasefire in Gaza and said the international community should act strongly to end the humanitarian disaster there. In a news conference in the Romanian capital, Bucharest, the minister stated that the blocking of humanitarian aid and medical supplies to Gaza by Israel should never be accepted by the international community. Speaking alongside Romania's Foreign Minister Luminița Obodescu, he also added that they cannot and must not remain silent while 2 million people are openly left to die of starvation and epidemic diseases on the bombardment, and that world public opinion must once again be strong to prevent this massacre. Minister Fidan also called on Israel to implement last week's interim decision by the International Court of Justice to protect civilians and declare an immediate ceasefire.
I call on Israel to implement the interim injunction of the International Court of Justice and declare a full ceasefire immediately. Israel continues to target Gaza, which has been under blockade for weeks. Those who survived the bombings suffer from hunger and disease. Israel's blocking of humanitarian aid and medical supplies from entering Gaza should never be accepted by the international community. We cannot and must not remain silent as 2 million people are openly left to die of hunger and epidemic diseases under bombardment. I call on the world community to act strongly once again to prevent this massacre.
In the Middle East, after a deadly attack against one of the Pentagon's bases, the Iraqi resistance announces the suspension of these operations against the United States. The Islamic resistance, made up of anti-terrorist movements, announced a pause without offering details on the duration. The Hezbollah brigade is one of its main groupings, backed the hold in the military and security actions against the occupation forces. The Secretary of the Militia, Abu Hussein al-Hamidawi, also referred to the Iraqi government and its weakness in the face of the genocide being committed against Gaza. The latest attack by the resistance killed 3 Washington soldiers and wounded 40 others. U.S. government employees launched a hunger strike to denounce the policies of President Joe Biden, who continues to support the Israeli occupation. The group, calling itself Federalists United for Peace, is responsible for carrying out the strike. They assure that the fundamental objective is to denounce the Israeli occupiers' use of hunger as a weapon against civilians by blocking the entry of food and humanitarian aid to the Strip with the support of allies such as the U.S. government. The United States Department of Defense updated the number of people injured in the attack on its military base in Jordan to more than 40. The drone attack on the Tower 22 base on the border between Jordan and Syria occurred earlier Sunday morning. Approximately 350 United States Army and Air Force personnel are deployed there. In the attack claimed by the Iraqi resistance, 3 soldiers were killed, and a unidirectional unmanned aerial system hit their housing units without being detected by their means. 8 of the already 40 wounded were evacuated, 8 of them in serious conditions. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In France, protesting farmers blocked highways to Paris again on Wednesday, despite the government's promise to help. Farmers disrupted traffic on a highway to the capital city close to the international Orly airport with their tractors. They demand better pay, fewer constraints and lower costs. The government on Tuesday promised measures including emergency cash aid and controls on imported food. After several days of escalating protests, French farmers spent the night at barricades Monday to Tuesday to press their case that growing and rearing food has become too difficult. Farmers have threatened to move in on the capital, host of the Summer Olympics in 6 months, if their demands are not met. Farmers blocked more traffic arteries across Belgium as they sought to disrupt trade at major ports and other economic lifelines. They also moved closer to Brussels on the eve of a major European Union summit in a continued push for better prices for their produce and less bureaucracy in their work. These protests are the continuous demand for concessions to receive better prices for their products and less bureaucracy, which, according to them, hinders their work. In the country's northwest, farmers using their tractors block access to the port of Zeebrugge, and on Wednesday, the rallies are part of the farming protests across the 27 countries of the European Union. Hundreds of thousands of Belgians have been facing disruptions and struggling to get to work or saw their doctors' appointments cancelled because of the protests. The farmers also plan to protest outside the EU headquarters during Thursday's summit of government leaders. The European Union's Executive Committee on Wednesday announced plans to protect farmers from sheep exports from Ukraine and allow them to use some land they had been forced to abandon for environmental reasons. Amid protests from farmers in France, Belgium and other countries, the European Union unveiled its plans and admitted that it must be approved by the member states and the European Parliament, an element that farmers' unions see as a sudden and symbolic concession. In this regard, Maroš Šefčovič, Vice President of the European Commission, said that they are doing their best to address farmers' concerns. It is worth noting that a mobilization of farmers is planned on Thursday in front of the European Union headquarters during a summit of government leaders.
The Commission has today proposed to lend a helping hand by allowing EU's farmers to derogate from the rules on land laying fallow set in the Common Agriculture Policy. And this is partial exemption limited to this year. What this means in practice is that instead of setting aside land, our farmers would be allowed to grow catch crops or nitrogen-fixing crops such as lentils, although without any plant protection products. By doing so, they would remain eligible for the direct payments under the CAP. The Commission believes that by taking this stabilising action, we can help alleviate the pressure that we know our farmers are feeling in order to ensure that they can stay economically viable during these times of high uncertainty.
On Wednesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov described BRICS as a prototype of the multipolar world, addressing the first meeting of Sherpas, as the leaders of the powerful alliance are called, and non-Sherpas. The head of Russian diplomacy also described the accession of new members as a strengthening of the partnership and the consolidation of a new global stance. This Wednesday, Egypt, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia and Ethiopia participated for the first time in a meeting of this format. In such a conclave, the Russian foreign minister also denounced that the US dollar is the political weapon used by the West to solve political issues. In Pakistan, former Prime Minister Imran Khan and his wife were sentenced on Wednesday to 14 years in prison for corruption. The sentence comes a day after another special court convicted Khan of leaking state secrets and gave him a 10-year prison sentence. The latest conviction and sentencing were Khan's third since 2022, when he was ousted from power and came ahead of Pakistan's February 8th parliamentary elections. The court also disqualified Khan for 10 years from holding any public office. Pakistan has a history of arresting former prime ministers or sidelining them ahead of elections if they are deemed to pose a challenge to the security establishment. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.